Good morning. Today we will be discussing occupation of the objective rally point, or ORP. An ORP is the location that a team will conduct its final preparations before conducting actions on the objective, such as the conduct of an area reconnaissance or an area surveillance. ORPs are selected based on 5 criteria, which are identical to the criteria used to select near and far side rally points in an LDA crossing. These criteria are: first, that the ORP is easy to defend; second, that it is away from natural lines of drift; third, that it is away from high-speed avenues of approach; fourth, that it provides good cover and concealment from both ground and air; fifth, that it provides little or no tactical value to the enemy. There is a sixth consideration unique to C troop operations, that the ORP can facilitate long-range communications. Some of these phrases are not intuitive, so we'll look into them a little further. Locations are easy to defend if the team can achieve interlocking sectors of fire and the terrain favors the team identifying enemy elements before they locate the team. However, this is often subjective and is highly dependent on the terrain. For a C troop element, a location being easy to defend is usually less important than a location being difficult to find, which goes into the other criteria. A natural line of drift is where a person naturally gets funneled when they move through the terrain. Think of clear lanes through the trees, ridges, and other natural movement corridors. Anywhere that a person would naturally walk as they traverse the terrain is a natural line of drift. The general rule of thumb to ensure your proposed ORP location is away from a natural line of drift is to find a spot that you would not want to be and go there. Nobody wants to walk through thorns, swamps, thick vegetation, etc. In general, the more uncomfortable you are getting to the ORP, the more secure it is. A high-speed avenue of approach is a path that facilitates rapid movement, usually a paved road or improved trail. If a vehicle can readily access the area, and the team is operating in enemy territory, then high-speed avenues of approach serve only to expedite the arrival of enemy reinforcements upon compromise. The criteria that the ORP provides cover and concealment from ground and air should be intuitive. In general, however, if your ORP location is in a place that is away from natural lines of drift, given that the area is vegetated, it will almost always have ground and overhead concealment. The fifth characteristic, that the area provides no tactical value to the enemy, is also subjective and MET-TC dependent. In conducting TLPs, that is, troop leading procedures, the team leader or platoon leader will have built an enemy sit temp or situation template. This is a hypothetical picture of where the enemy is located based on the known mission and composition of the enemy force. When this is built, there will be suspected enemy positions. The ORP should be away from these suspected positions for obvious reasons. Additionally, there will be positions that provide excellent overwatch or security to the enemy force that cannot be planned for by a map reconnaissance. In this case, it is important for the team to avoid occupying these places for the ORP so as to not accidentally co-locate with an enemy element. The sixth characteristic is in parentheses because it is non-standard. That is, all Army units use the first 5 criteria in selecting an ORP. For C Troop, the sixth consideration is uniquely important, but it is also implied for all C Troop operations. If the team is conducting long-range reconnaissance, then the team by necessity must maintain long-range communications. Nevertheless, the best place to establish such communications is generally the ORP, and hence it is a supplementary consideration. There are 2 ways to deliberately occupy an ORP. In the first method, the team conducts a long halt, deploys a leader's reconnaissance, reconnoiters the ORP, and then occupies it deliberately. This is similar to a normal line infantry squad occupying an ORP. The other way to occupy an ORP is to use the fishhook method, in which the team moves in file in a fishhook pattern around the ORP and sets in the center of their fishhook. The final method is to occupy an ORP by force. This is essentially conducting a security halt and then pronouncing that it is an ORP. This is the fastest but least secure method to use. We will begin with the standard ORP occupation method. This method involves 3 specific stages, which are shown in the upper right-hand corner of the board. In the first stage, the leader's reconnaissance moves to the ORP site, reconnoiters the site, and places S&O. In the second stage, the leader's reconnaissance without the S&O returns to the team. In the third stage, the remainder of the team moves to the ORP and is emplaced. This presentation begins with the team already in a long halt, either zipper or security halt, depending on the team leader's decision. The team begins with a hasty MWE prep, or men, weapons, and equipment prep, of the 4-man leader's reconnaissance party. Hasty MWE addresses the following briefly: weapons, ammo, camo, commo, and nods. The leader's recon ensures that all weapons are not rattling or shining by taping over any glinting metal, that all closed bolt weapons have a full magazine and a round chambered, and that all open bolt weapons have a full drum, and that a round is on the feed tray with a bolt to the rear on safe. They ensure that all members of the leader's recon are adequately camouflaged, including reapplying any face paint, and that kits are not shining. They get a final comms check with the squad internal radios, and they ensure that their nods are mounted for nighttime operations or are carried if the operation is going to go day into night. Once Hasty MWE is complete, the team leader gives two 5-point contingency plans. The first is to the ATL, who will be in charge of the halt while the team leader is away on the leader's recon. This 5-point contingency plan, like all 5-point contingency plans, is composed of the following 5 elements, often abbreviated GOTWA. Of note, all 5-point contingency plans are a contingency plan given by the leader, who will go with a moving element, to the subordinate, who will be supervising a stationary element for the duration that the leader is absent. All 5-point contingency plans share this format. The first line, going to: what is the destination of the moving element? This is briefed with a distance, direction, and grid location, and a terrain feature if possible. The second line, others I am taking with me. The leader will inform the subordinate of what other members of the reconnaissance team are moving with the moving element and the total number of people. The third line, time hack, details how long the moving element will be gone. This should be briefed as: I will be gone for 1 hour. The time is now 20:45. I will return at 21:45. This avoids confusion by adding redundancy to the brief. Also, give yourself extra time. Either doubling the time you think you'll be gone or adding 20 minutes, depending on the situation, is usually a good way to build some flexibility into the plan. The fourth line details what to do if the leader does not meet the time hack. These are actions taken by the stationary element if the leader does not return at the prescribed time. This should never include additional wait time. For instance, the leader will never tell the subordinate, if I do not return by the time hack, wait 15 more minutes. This is redundant and should be part of the original time estimate. The fifth line is actions on contact. This is a 4-part portion. Parts 1 and 2 detail the situation of the moving element taking contact. The first part is actions taken by the moving element. The second part is actions taken by the stationary element. The third and fourth parts of actions on contact detail what happens if the stationary element takes contact. The third part being actions taken by the moving element. The fourth part, actions taken by the stationary element. An example of a 5-point contingency plan given by the team leader to the ATL prior to conducting a leader's reconnaissance is shown here. I am going on a leader's reconnaissance of the ORP, grid Echo Juliet 87654776, direction 320 degrees, distance 450 meters. I am going with 4 people, myself, the SSO, the saw gunner, and the RTO. I will be gone for 1 hour. The time is now 20:45. I will return at 21:45. If I do not return by 21:45, radio me every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. If I do not respond, move to the site of the ORP and continue to radio every minute on the minute. If you cannot locate me, establish long-range communications with the platoon leadership and request guidance. If you cannot establish communications with the platoon, initiate the lost communications plan. If I take contact, I will conduct a break contact back to this location and link up with you. If you know that I have taken contact, prepare to move, but remain in place until we return to this location and assist us in breaking contact if necessary. If you take contact, I will return to this location and enter on the non-firing side to assist you in fighting off the contact. If you take contact, fight in place. If you are overwhelmed, break contact back to the last en route rally point and radio me that you are doing so. Some final notes on 5-point contingency plans. The simpler that these plans are, the better. The more consistent that these plans are, the better. Remember, this is information given in the field under duress. The more that a 5-point contingency plan has in common with a prior 5-point contingency plan, the more likely it will be remembered and executed accurately. At this point, the first 5-point contingency plan has been given to the ATL. The team leader now gives a 5-point contingency plan to the S&O team. S&O stands for Security and Observation. S&O is composed of the SSO and the SAW gunner. They will remain in place at the 6 o'clock of the ORP site and ensure the enemy does not take the position while the team leader and RTO bring the team back to the ORP. Bring the team up to the ORP. This 5-point has the same format as all other 5-point contingency plans, but will naturally involve different content, especially with regards to actions on contact. The leader's reconnaissance departs after the 5 points are confirmed with the team leader to the ATL and the SSO, respectively. The ATL counts the leader's reconnaissance out of the halt and then disseminates the 5-point to the members of the team occupying the halt. The leader's reconnaissance party, composed of the team leader, RTO, SSO, and SAW, move along their route to the tentative ORP site. It is critical that they take their rucksacks with them. Their formation can either be a diamond or a file, whichever the team leader prefers. The SSO should lead the way to the ORP in either configuration. When they tentatively identify the ORP, the members of the leader's reconnaissance party halt and face outward, getting ruck to minimize their signature, remaining on a knee. They conduct seals, which can either be a verbal command or utilizing the squeeze method, in which the team leader squeezes the arm of the man to his left. That man squeezes the arm of the man to his left, etc. The squeeze will pass through the element in a circle and return to the team leader. When he feels a squeeze on his right arm, he will know that the leader's reconnaissance party is conducting seals. He can then end seals in the same way. Once seals is complete, the team leader and SSO pinpoint the location and confirm that this is the site of the ORP. Now direct your attention to the middle right portion of the board. At this point, the team leader and RTO emplace themselves as S&O. The SAW and SSO move forward and clear the ORP in a zigzag pattern, moving from the 6 o'clock to the 12 o'clock, and from the 12 o'clock to either the 9 or 3. They then move to the opposite side and back to the 6 o'clock. It is critical that they cross the center at least 2 times. At each corner, they conduct seals for whatever interval the SSO decides is necessary. While clearing the ORP, they are looking for signs of recent enemy activity. This can be trash, ammunition, food, or human waste. If there is no sign of recent activity and no sign of enemy presence in the area, the SSO and SAW move back to the team leader and RTO. The team leader can choose to spot check or can simply emplace the SSO and SAW as the S&O. When he emplaces S&O, the team leader faces the SAW towards the ORP and the SSO back towards the team's halt. He ensures that the SSO still has FM communication with the team and notifies the SSO that the 5-point contingency plan he was given in the halt prior to departing on the leader's reconnaissance is now in effect. The SSO acknowledges. The team leader now radios the ATL back in the halt as the FAR recognition signal. When the ATL receives the FAR recognition signal, he moves the remainder of the team into the short halt posture and prepares for the team leader's return. The team leader and RTO keep their rucksacks on and move back to the team's halt. They exchange the near recognition signal with the ATL upon identifying the team's halt. The ATL counts the 2 men back into the halt. The team leader briefs the ATL on any changes to the plan. If there are none, he repeats the distance, direction, and grid of the ORP and then radios the SSO. He informs the SSO that the team will be moving to the ORP site. This is the FAR recognition signal. The SSO and SAW take a knee to increase their visibility for the approaching team. At the SSO or team leader's discretion, the SAW gunner may stay in the prone. The full team now moves to the site of the ORP, led by the team leader. On recognizing the SSO, the team leader gives the near recognition signal and the element takes a knee. The ATL moves to the front of the file to control flow of personnel into the ORP. The team leader moves to the 6 o'clock with the RTO and sets the RTO at the 6 o'clock of the ORP site. At this point, the SSO and SAW gunner are co-located with the RTO and the team leader at the 6 o'clock. The ATL is at the front of the file, opposing them, with the rest of the team in file behind the ATL. The team leader then takes the SSO and SAW gunner and places them. The SSO at the 12 o'clock, the SAW gunner at either the 10 or 2 o'clock, depending on which side is more likely to take contact. The team leader then returns to the 6 o'clock as the ATL feeds the 2 SOs and the ARTO into the halt. The team leader emplaces the SOs and the ARTO into their positions. The ATL moves with the last SO into the ORP. The team leader can choose, depending on their situation, if he will place his team on a knee and then deliberately transition to long halt posture, or instead, given that the area is already cleared and reconnoitered, that he can emplace his men immediately in the long halt posture in the prone. Regardless of the option he chooses, he will spot check security to ensure sectors of fire interlock. Once Once he ensures 360-degree security, the team conducts seals. If the team leader deems it necessary, he can place claymores at this time. Once seals is complete or claymores are in place, the team calls the OPSCED for ORP established. If you are unfamiliar, an OPSCED is an operation schedule. It is a set of code words associated with phases of an operation. If not using an OPSCED, the team leader will simply call to hire that the ORP is established and provide a grid. This is the most traditional, secure, and time-consuming way to occupy an ORP. If time is of greater concern, then the team leader can opt for the fishhook method. Security is reduced in this case, but speed is dramatically increased. In the case of a fishhook ORP, the team remains in file for the duration of the occupation, which ultimately resembles a zipper halt. On their approach, the team leader passes the hand and arm signal for a fishhook ORP. This same route planning technique can and should be used when moving into any halt, as it prevents the team from being surprised by a trailing enemy unit. The team executes the fishhook movement into the templated ORP site and occupies the ORP by force. They follow the same procedures that they would follow in the occupation of a zipper halt. However, the team takes extra care to check that the site meets the criteria for an ORP. On arrival, just as in a zipper halt, the team initially emplaces in the short halt posture, conducts seals, and pinpoints. Once the pinpoint is complete, the team can enter the long halt posture. The team leader may spot check security if he deems necessary. The SSO and ATL emplace claymores to the 12 o'clock and the 6 o'clock, at least 16 meters from the team's location, and ideally with a tree or other large, heavy obstacle between the claymore and the team. This is to avoid the steel plate on the back of the claymore flying back and striking a team member in the event of a detonation. The team leader issues task, conditions, and standards to the ATL and SSO on security for the ORP. This will sound something like, emplace the claymores at the 12 o'clock and the 6 o'clock, at least 16 meters from the team, oriented towards the most likely avenues of approach, with a rock or tree between the team and the claymore. Ensure that the detonation wire is dogleg and camouflaged, and that you brief the man next to you on the location and azimuth of the claymore. You have 10 minutes. The time is now 21:45. This task must be complete no later than 21:55. The ATL and SSO emplace the claymores in accordance with the team leader's instructions. While they do this, depending on the security situation, the team leader can direct the RTO and/or ARTO to establish communications with hire. The team leader remains aware that if a leader's reconnaissance is to follow, that the RTO will be a member of that reconnaissance, and the ARTO or ATL is a better choice for establishing long-range communications. Once claymores are in place and communications are established, the team leader disseminates the team's current location and the distance and direction to the objective, as well as the distance and direction to the DAR, or designated area of recovery, in accordance with the op order. Once information is disseminated, the ORP is considered established and the RTO calls the OPSCED. Occupying an ORP by force is the fastest method of occupying an ORP and also the least preferred. When occupying an ORP by force, the team conducts no deliberate reconnaissance or counter-tracking movement into the ORP site. The team simply conducts a halt, either zipper or security halt, and then conducts other actions in the ORP as normal. It is a simpler way to occupy an ORP that trades security for speed and should only be used when absolutely necessary. A final consideration in what ORP occupation method to employ is the number of people with the team. If there are 8 or fewer, then a fishhook ORP that ultimately looks like a zipper halt is an option. However, if the team is traveling with enablers and thus has more than 8 people with the team, then a traditional security halt, similar to the infantry rifle squad, is most preferred. In conclusion, this brief has addressed the characteristics and selection factors of objective rally points, the meaning of the ORP characteristics and selection factors, the occupation of a standard ORP, similar to a line infantry squad, the occupation of a fishhook ORP, and the occupation of an ORP by force. The following resources were used in preparing this presentation. Send any questions or comments to charlietrooptactics@outlook.com.